Are you saying you faked with me?
Yeah.
Wrong. Now you're single.
What do you know about sexual relations?
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
I'm a little worried about being a slut.
You're listening to the Come With Us podcast, talking the good, the kinky, and the ugly. Here are your hosts, Beth, Aaron, and Tina.
Hello, all you sexy holes and poles out there. Welcome. Here's another first of the new year. No.
Yeah.
Is this
our first episode of the new year?
Oh my gosh.
We're starting out with a bang.
20. Oh, what better way to start the new year? Yeah, welcome to 2022. I like all the 2022. Welcome to Come With Us podcast, where you're part of all the naughty, sexy, fun conversations that everyone wants to listen in on. Oh my goodness, so glad to be here today. We are talking about a topic that we've actually never really addressed before, and I'm kind of surprised. And it's sex under the influence, which, includes, that could be pot, that could be mushrooms, those could be antidepressants, right? Anything that alters us.
Alcohol.
Alcohol, there you go, all that stuff.
Probably the biggest, I'm guessing.
Probably the biggest, that's it. I'm Beth Darling, your sexy genius, here from sexyedschool.com, where smart, successful, and even spiritual people go for their graduate degree in love. And I'm here with Tina and Aaron. Happy New Year to each and every one of you.
I don't like that it's a new year already. This is fucking insane.
Right? It flew freaking by.
Yeah, I still feel like it's like 2019. For some reason.
It's like the world paused.
Yeah.
We had COVID and then we thought it was done. And anyway, whatever. Anyway, we're here. Thank God we have sexy. You know, whether you believe in divine creation or not, thank goodness that we as humans have the ability to love, to pleasure, to be pleasured, and to enjoy serious, intimate pleasure. Because that's what I'm holding on to. When things get tough, more pleasure, please.
Yep,
right?
I agree.
Makes the difference. So. All right, so let's think about it. It's weird. Everybody's got their own take on sex under the influence. Some people, I generally, as a professional, as a coach and teacher and everything, I tell people I want to teach everyone to enjoy sexy so much that they don't want to be under the influence because they want to feel everything. They want to savor everything. They want to enjoy and remember. But there are a lot of people, I think, who prefer sex under the influence, and maybe even they won't have it unless they're under the influence of something for one reason or the other.
That's kind of sad.
I kind of think so too.
I don't think that people, well, I don't know if people prefer it, but it's incredibly prevalent.
Preferring is one thing, but to refuse to do it unless you're under the influence, that's so
common.
That's a problem.
Well, I think they don't necessarily refuse. Well, I guess with the young people, I think there's this, I don't do that. Unless, I only did that because I was drunk. I only did that because. So they use it as an excuse.
Hookup culture is directly correlated to, I think, like the idea of like drinking and like going out and how like that's so prevalent in like U.S. culture today, especially like younger kids. Like
it's the excuse that they can give for behaving in a way that maybe they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want to own too much.
I mean,
well, then that's.
Yeah.
I think. Look, like alcohol. Specifically alcohol can calm you, not in like when you're binge drinking, but like a few drinks will like calm you, or it can loosen you up, can like expel, like if you don't have like, outside anxiety stuff.
Right, it can release inhibitions.
Yeah, yes. Release inhibitions, which oftentimes I think with, especially specifically sex, like people have,
Yeah, but interestingly, they say that one drink for women helps boost testosterone, which then increases our sex drive, our libido. But more than 2 drinks for men decreases their testosterone.
But I'm not talking about just for hormones. I'm talking about like your psyche, more like how you mentally go into it. That's
true. So maybe alcohol like spurs your imagination and your confidence. And yet
confidence.
It can definitely decrease your body.
It takes off your give a fuck filter.
I mean, everyone knows about
give a fuck
exactly.
filter.
That's a great way to put it. Everyone knows about Whisky Dick, and like obviously, like that's
right.
But like that's fine and dandy. But like, if you're not, at some point in time, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and go, if I didn't have this some type of chemical in my system, would I be doing this on a normal day? If the answer is no, then you really ought to re-examine your life choices.
Right. Figure out whether this is something you actually want to be doing.
Is it something you want to be doing, or is it something you're hiding? But you're using a chemical to hide behind.
Yeah.
And to use as an excuse.
I mean, I'm not saying that this is like a healthy mechanism. I'm just saying it's super common. But I do think that generally what I've seen is like people tend to grow out of it. Like I would say it's like a something that I saw very commonly, like between the ages of like 16 to let's say like 23, 24. And then people really like kind of did grow out of it. Like they started having serious relationships, or I don't know, they... So
I think that's good. I think what I see with clients, because my clients typically are, say, 30 and over.
So that's the only experience I have.
Right.
So
right.
I can't speak for older
And personally,
people.
I don't tend to drink very much. I don't handle alcohol very well. I get drunk super fast, like in half a glass, and then I'm hungover by the end of the glass. So it's not very much fun. But from clients and people that I've worked with, I think with over 30, oftentimes what I see is that they're more willing to ask. And again, I think there's a little bit of hiding, but they just have a couple of drinks and that give a fuck filter goes away. So that's when then they're willing to ask for what they want, or they're willing to be a little bit more cavalier about it, or they're just not thinking about the kids and the bills and the work and stuff as much. And so and then they tend to rely on that. So
I think really like where it comes down to it is like if you're using it all the time, if you're relying on alcohol to have sex, then there's probably some sort of issue. But, if you go out with your significant other or with someone and you get drunk or whatever, and then you have sex, like, so I don't see any, if it's like, if you're not doing it all the time. So, or if you go out on a first date and you get drunk, I mean, I'm so guilty of this. Like, it's not even funny. Like,
I love it. On a first date. Oh my God.
Of course.
I wouldn't trust somebody. Forget the sex part. I wouldn't trust somebody enough to be drunk on the first date. I wouldn't. That would make me uncomfortable. I would be like, how am I going to get home and everything?
Drunk, so
Yeah, I'm a submissive, but I'm still a control freak, and I don't like the idea of being out of control with people I don't know or trust. So that's
I wouldn't like doing that because again, I'm like you. I'm a control freak, and I try to take responsibility for everything, so I wouldn't be that. But also the fact, like, shit, it's 2022. I haven't been on a first date in 12 years.
I'm
so, like, even the thought
so
of, like, being on a first date or, like, that anxiety or thought process, like, my brain doesn't comprehend that anymore. That's very weird.
Oh, I go out on first dates, you know.
You do. Yeah, both of y'all do. Y'all are both single.
I love them.
I'm not.
I love first dates.
Like, I can't put myself in that mindset anymore of what is a first date like or what did I feel like on a first date. It's just been that long that I forgot.
Yeah.
I hope I don't ever have to remember.
Knock on wood. Right.
Yeah.
I also think it's different, like, specifically, like, when you're talking about, like, people are... of course, there's, like, hookup culture when you get older and stuff, but generally, like, if your goal is to, like, if you met someone online and which I've done many a times, and your goal is just to hook up with them, like... you're going into it a little bit of a different mindset than like really getting to know that person and like it may turn into something. And certainly like I've had also relationships, like I would say the majority of relationships, and this is not just me, like most of my friends, majority of relationships, like we've slept on the first date together. Like, I'm sorry, like that's just like how the world kind of is or like, I don't know, like that to me is just like the norm. You don't have to sleep on the first date together, but like it's very common. And like,
yeah, it's funny. I don't, just because I just don't think it's usually great sex, and I'm
No,
so done with not great sexy.
Right.
It's just not worth it. So if I'm never going to see them again anyway, I'm like, forget it. I'd rather just get myself off and stuff afterwards. It's just easier, because otherwise I end up basically giving somebody else a lot of pleasure and not getting the pleasure I want in return. So it's a bad investment, a bad ROI, if you will, which is
especially for
silly.
women, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
I think a lot of it has to do with young girls are like still fairly insecure, and they don't, like women that age tend to like not know how to ask for stuff and tend to go into sex with this mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to like get him off and like it's fine, and like,
Right. Because we're still sort of doing it for something in return. Like, oh, well then hopefully maybe they'll like me, and stuff and whatever. And again, I think part of it's because because sex doesn't necessarily give us the same pleasure the first time that it does for him. So,
I learned something super interesting this week. If you guys don't mind me sharing really, really quick. Yeah. So I don't know if this is true, but you are the sex expert. But I saw this on TikTok, and I cannot stop thinking about it for some reason.
What?
So it told me that when women and men, when a woman and a man has sex, the main hormone that women release is oxytocin, and the main hormone that men release is dopamine. And the difference is that oxytocin is a binding hormone. So originally, and women have much more of it. So originally it was like women have more of it because it's like a maternal instinct. So when you release oxytocin, it's like a binding. Dopamine is like a rush hormone. That's what they call like post-nut clarity. So you get like this huge rush, but then afterwards you feel like sated and like, you know, you don't really need that like attention or anything afterwards. You just kind of like need that rush again. And while women release this like binding kind of hormone, and that's the main one, and that's why women, this person was explaining, get like a lot more attached during sex. And like I just cannot stop thinking about that for some reason, because it's like it explains to me like so much about like why a lot of times like women tend to be like much more invested or like fall harder or fall for people like, you know.
Did you not pay attention in health class?
Okay,
they talked about this in health class?
They taught that in my health class in high school.
Did not talk about this in my health class.
If they did, I sure as hell don't remember.
My health class, they talked about it. Like,
wow.
Really?
It was now I don't know if it was a part of the curriculum or it was just the teacher like knew about her job and was passionate about it, but I remember that specific lecture and stuff like that, and like
you're amazing.
Talking about, hey, this is what makes you guys different. Like, guys, this is what you're gonna like. If you haven't already, this is why you feel this way. Women, this is why you feel this way. Like, there's a difference in the way your brains are chemicized or brain chemistry. So it was explained. I remember that.
Okay, well, so there's a whole lot to that.
We need to talk about this on another episode.
I think we'll do that our next episode.
Oh, it's just
I think
so
that
interesting.
is really because there is a big difference in how things go. So, okay, so our next episode, stay tuned, subscribe, like and subscribe, give us a review on Apple Podcasts and stuff and listen. And then we'll follow up because that's a great topic, super interesting, and we will definitely do that.
And it's like all over TikTok too. A lot of people, because it's not, so there's a lot of there are different sides to this argument. So like, I'm not saying that this is the,
Well, no, it's because there's so little actual research in terms of sex and orgasms and stuff. And, Kinsey, way back in the 50s, that was groundbreaking, revolutionary. In fact, got him ostracized all sorts of places. So, okay. So let's do the science of that. I love that. So we'll talk about that next. But the fact that those chemicals. Yeah. And chemicals. So the thing is, and that's probably why we ingest them, whether it's alcohol or whatever, something. But when you talk about bonding, it's funny because one of the concerns with people having sex on mushrooms, especially if it's with like a first date or somebody new, is that apparently mushrooms create this euphoric, right, psilocybin, and so people are more likely to feel incredibly more attached to the person and to feel like they may even be soulmates or whatever. And it's really just this chemical high, not based on anything.
With MDMA, I think it's like the again, like dopamine and serotonin that's released like at such high levels that it's like the same idea behind it. And then like super, super lows. I'm not sure about mushrooms.
MDMA is ecstasy?
Ecstasy, yeah.
Right. So that's this... I wasn't in the drug culture, so it took me a long time to put those together. So isn't that also called Molly?
So there's a difference. Actually, MDMA and Molly are the same thing. They're just pure forms of ecstasy. Ecstasy, oftentimes, it was like the club drug in the 80s, but oftentimes ecstasy is like what gets cut. And then it's like, it's a lot less pure than Molly or MDMA. So that's why these days, like we refer to it like, I don't know anyone who does ecstasy, but like Molly is like the big drug because they want
you have to be careful because people literally have been dying from being
there is
chemicals.
Never a more I have never seen a more dangerous and I have had my fair share of drug experiences than taking drugs now. Everything, it doesn't matter what it is, like you just have to be so careful. And we used to pop like honestly, like shit you'd get in the back of like your high school, like whatever.
You would buy from anybody and trust
and you just like didn't care.
Yes,
like there was no such thing as fentanyl back then, so it was like
there was. It just
there was, but
they weren't putting it in stuff, and now people are dying. So none of this. This is our the lawyer, Beth Darling, previous lawyer, is saying None of this is recommendations for doing any illegal drugs, okay? That's not what we're saying. What we are just talking about is the effects that if you do them, the effects that it'll have on sex. We are not recommending
In our
them.
experiences.
So, in our experiences, yeah. But now, when it comes to mushrooms, though, there are parts of the country that have been legalizing, and certainly even for microdosing and stuff, which I think is great because
like Colorado,
mental health issues are significant and rampant in my family. And so having more alternatives is really useful. But I think
ketamine
that,
too.
Yeah, with ketamine, which is a tranquilizer for animals and stuff, they're having great luck with antidepressant stuff. And I think it's really important because one of the biggest problems right now for people, adults, is that so many of us are on antidepressants, and those antidepressants can really kill a libido in men and women. It's painful, right? It's sad because you want to love your partner, and yet there's no part of your body that really will respond to even intentional, purposeful interactions and stuff.
I think it's like a side effect of SSRIs generally, just like the whole, and SSRIs are like, you probably know this better, but they're like generally the common like form of antidepressants and like combination anti-anxiety, right? That's what they prescribe these days generally.
Yeah. So here, the anti-anxiety medications. So here are the ones, the categories that are known to cause a significant decrease in libido. It's anti-anxiety medications that are based on benzodiazepines, i.e. Xanax.
Yeah.
They're anticonvulsant medications, such as Tegretol, phenytoin, and phenobarbital. Those will do. And then antidepressants, including anti-mania medications, antipsychotics, MAOIs, SSRIs, SNRIs, tricyclic antidepressants. Like, I'm sure there are a couple of things that are left out there, but basically the ones anything to do with our mental health,
except for Adderall and Vyvanse and stuff. So the opposite, like the stimulant ones.
Yeah, the stimulants and stuff. But okay, so the antidepressants and those I just named really can decrease libido and then make orgasm very difficult to get to. When we talk about like the Vyvanse and the stimulants, do you find it harder? Like, do you know that to reach orgasm and stuff on them? Because
when like in the mornings when I get like that surge, yes, it's funny because like I like masturbating in the morning, and sometimes when I'm just like when the medicine like really hits, I can't. It's just like my brain is like was on so like off, and then it's like so on, and I'm like okay, like I can't, but. That generally, like for me, is something that's like I've tested this many times. It wanes. Like it's something that like it only lasts like about an hour, and then my body's just like it becomes normal. Like it gets like normal, and then like I feel totally fine, and then I'm like okay, like
yeah. So I have ADHD. I'm very open about that. I take Vyvanse and have for years, and I take a fairly high dose because I have a terrible case of ADHD. And I agree with you. There is a certain point where I might have a desire, but I can't reach orgasm. But then later on, I actually can enjoy sexy more because my brain isn't racing and finding other things. Like, before, and I didn't realize this. I didn't know I had ADHD until I was 29. Not because I didn't have it, but just because I just didn't. My brain was always going off in different directions. That just is wild
to me because knowing you for so long, like no offense, but your ADHD, like mine, it can be bad. And I know the ways it can be bad, but it is like, and I don't take nearly as high of a dose as Beth. Like hers is like,
yeah, it's serious.
Off the charts.
Yeah. Like, my kids are like, we've never seen anybody with a case of ADHD as bad as yours. And it's very
put
true.
one sock on and then like do something for like 2 hours and then put the other sock on level. Like,
yes. Not even notice. That's absolutely true. And sometimes that's when I am on my medication, which is really frightening. But
this is not, I don't think this is, and funnily enough, I have some comments about the Xanax because I actually disagree in my experience. Like I find Xanax and sex to be actually like a very pleasurable experience. I'm not prescribed it. This is just more like recreational.
Experimental.
Well, experimental is in like, again, like I'm very wary these days of where I get my drugs. So I only get my, like if I'm, doing Xanax, and usually I only, like I get it from my, what's it called? My psychiatrist, but for special reasons, like flying, or I'm having like a panic attack at night, you know, like, but I'm saying like for me, I've never taken antidepressants, but Xanax is something that I quite enjoy. Like it relaxes me. It kind of doesn't like, it's, you know, makes me like not as like, I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe it has to do with, again, the timing. Because one of the biggest hints for people who are taking antidepressants particularly is to maybe take them. Like if you normally are having sexy in the morning, wait until after you until you have sexy and then take it. Because then the next day
I would take.
It's burned off 24 hours. If it's at night, again, have sexy first and then take your medicine. So, and I think that's what we're saying also when it comes to these ADD. We just, hopefully you can realize that there are some differences and you can adjust your timing. And that way, if you've got a partner, they don't feel so much personal rejection, right? Because you're trying to make accommodations and give yourself and them more opportunity to be.
It's a huge, like that's a huge way, like for people, like it's a really great piece of advice. I would say a lot of people I have dated before have taken antidepressants, and the taking it after sex in the morning one was just like a game changer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, can be little things like that.
So what else? We've kind of talked about this like the illegally kind of like stimulating ones, like the dopamine, the mushrooms.
Well, okay, so actually, but one thing with mushrooms, I think, because mushrooms can intensify everything, and it can sort of make things a little bit more transcendental, if you will. But that means that any mishap, you know, normally I'm really big. When you're having sexy fun, take chances. Don't worry about perfection and just feel free to laugh and be silly about stuff. But on mushrooms, because your sense of touch is so different, like if you are a little too hard or you get a little, you know, you brush your teeth against a cock wrong, if you're giving a blowjob and stuff, that can feel 10 times more, just like the good can feel more. So I suggest actually taking it easier, if you will, when you're under the influence, even though the inclination is, I don't give a flying fuck and whatever. But I would say that you just need to be aware that a little mishap can feel like a bigger thing.
And specifically, I would not recommend doing drugs, even though, again, like I don't, you know, in the past, but like with or specifically harder drugs with people you do, or someone you're just like just hooking up with the first time, or you don't really know, and then having sex. Because like I can tell you, for example, in ecstasy, it's very common to also have the problem of not finishing,
right? Like not being able to orgasm,
it's like super common. And I'm not sure about mushrooms
from men
like,
and women, and I've actually heard that also from people about mushrooms, that the things feel more, but it just because those kind of, they get you to a level, but it's this sort of flat level, and orgasm is it's a peak and a crash, right? It's just it's not.
I also think like with orgasms, you do have to be like very aware and conscious of your body, and oftentimes when you do these types of drugs, like you kind of aren't like, you know, you are like more like maybe like you feel more stuff like that, but it's kind of again like transcendental. You're not really like
inhabiting.
Yeah, exactly. Like. It's almost like a loss of consciousness.
There's a surrealism to it, I think. Okay, but before we go, I think we haven't talked about pot.
Yeah, pot is a big one.
Pot is a big one, and I gotta say, I think there is so much goodness waiting for us with marijuana, because marijuana does a lot of good. Marijuana helps, and CBD helps alleviate pain. So some people who are really just tense and et cetera, it can help them relax. It can help them then allow and to feel more pleasure. And I'm talking about like an appropriate dose, because there's certainly a dose where it's not just being attuned, it's being that more removed, right? Being stoned as opposed to just being
and there's
relaxed.
A huge difference in that,
and different kinds of
and
marijuana.
So it's like a huge process and stuff. So
yeah,
and I would say
figuring it
like
out is difficult.
I've had major issues, and I'm not anti-pot. I used to smoke all the time. Major issues with pot and anxiety, and I think that certainly
yes,
that's where there's a level where it's too much, obviously, and then there's a type of pot that like it was right for you. Yes. And once you find that, and it's like takes a lot of, that is the right level. But for me, oftentimes it's just that's the one drug out of all of them that just like puts me in my head, and I cannot get out of it. And I just like I don't know. It's just not.
So that's amazing, because I know women who have a very difficult time orgasming without the use of pot. I know, and again, what kind? Right, this is the advantage now that we have these dispensaries and pharmacies in different states. You really can go. You can find the certain blend, the particular dose. You can reliably count on it, and you can figure out what works for you, because it is going to be different than what works for somebody else. But pot has this interesting character. It's a vasodilator. So especially as we get older, clitorises, just like penises, have trouble with blood flow, because our arteries, or whatever it is that takes the blood in there, gets a little bit clogged. Our blood flow isn't as strong. And so women also, just like men, can have trouble getting fully aroused and then reaching orgasm. But a little bit of THC can actually help that significantly. And so just from a physical reality, THC can do wonders. And they're experimenting with it in different lubes. And some women are just having remarkable success and pleasure with a little THC in lubes. And some not so much. For me, I've tried the ones that, some various ones, and I haven't really seen a difference. I don't quite know why. But again, the more access that we get to reliable marijuana, instead of it being just buying from the street vendor and not knowing what the hell we're actually getting.
No idea what we had to go through.
Oh, I do know.
Oh, well, maybe you do. But
I do. I had
these
5
days
kids.
Do not know.
Right. I know. But yeah, there's great pleasure, I think, awaiting us in marijuana, and I'm really excited that they are doing more work and more research into it. And at some point, I'm hoping we're going to have a specialist, pot and sex specialist, talk with us, because I think that there is a lot that we all should learn at any age. And again, I'm not talking about just the getting stoned off your gourd. I'm talking about using it as just like, help people use Viagra or something, or just like you would use a lube that just is more impactful. So I think that's going to be key. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So I would say pot is definitely like a big one. We've touched on alcohol. I think we've really touched on everything that I would have experience with. Yeah. I don't think there's much.
I think for a couple that's been together for a long time and stuff, I think experimenting, again, not getting into the, we need to do this to have good sexy, but as like, okay, we're experimenting with this vibrator and this opportunity and prostate massagers. I think experimenting with these different microdosing or whatever and something in places where it's legal and therefore reliable, I think can be kind of a fun, exciting time. So I'm looking forward to more and more places being able to allow that and open the doors for pleasure from that sense. So.
I mean, I can certainly say from my experiences, not all under the influence experiences have been great. Certainly not all, but not all have been bad. So, I'm obviously not advocating for drug use or anything, but it's just, it's different, and like it happens, and you have to talk about it because it does happen, and
you have to know about it. And again, with the alcohol, just knowing 1 drink for her is good and 2 drinks for you is not so good if you're a guy. So and just heads up, like again with my ADHD, ecstasy I've tried now a few times. It does not do for me anything crazy except dry my mouth up. Does not. And believe me, I want that, because ecstasy is, or Molly, MDMA rather, is supposed to be where you just want everything and touch is magnified. I've yet to experience that, but it sounds lovely.
Ecstasy, when it's pure, and again, very hard to find. Would not trust anyone. Like, honestly, it's awesome. Like, I find it to be a very.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, but maybe again, it's also hard to get good stuff, so you got to pay attention. And we're not recommending anybody do anything illegal. So,
okay, Aaron, any last thoughts? You've been so quiet.
I mean, the only chemical I've experienced with or experimented with is alcohol, and I don't.
Have you never smoked weed?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm weird enough as it is. I don't need anything else to fucking keep pushing it.
I didn't experiment with this stuff until I was like in my 50s. Really, I'm like, okay, I'm old enough. I'm not going to get hooked on it. So now I just want to see what it is. I'm not looking to.
Yeah, I have no real desire at all.
Yeah,
I definitely have used.
I mean, I'll probably end up using like CBD or something as I get older, because I need knee replacement on both my knees already at 33.
CBD makes a huge difference,
and I'll need it eventually. But at the same time, like I have no desire to feel what it feels like, and not to mention like drunk sex is fun, but that is so rare in my life. Like 99% of the time when my wife and I have sex, there's nothing going through our bodies except for maybe a little bit of caffeine.
Yeah.
But that's about
good.
it.
Caffeine's a drug, they say. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I've heard
But
that.
it's-
But
pretty
the
mild.
the change that it's going to have on your sex life is so non-existent unless
Yeah.
you're really heavily into something.
Yeah, unless you're
But-
trying super hard. So,
Yeah.
oh, good. All right. Well, I think
That's,
this
I
is
think,
interesting.
Really
and-
good 3 perspectives
I'm
on
boring.
the situation. No.
We all have our different things.
And
so,
there's certainly
anyway.
so many people like Aaron. Like, I don't want to say that people taking like drugs and having sex is like the norm. Even though I
Well, it
said that,
depends
but
on the
like
age.
it depends on your age and like it depends like where you grew up and like
I honestly, and this isn't coming from a place of judgment. I don't care. Do whatever the hell you want. It's just, for me, especially the way everybody talks about, MDMA and, all that stuff. If I were in that line, I mean, again, this is an if, but I would limit it to anything that grows in the ground. I'm not taking anything that came out of some chemist's lab, and whether that's a pharmaceutical lab or anything like that. I try not to put any of that
That's
shit in my
actually a
body
hard rule for a
at
lot
all.
of people.
Period.
You
The
hear
end.
that a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, I did mushrooms for the first time in the past year. And actually, so the first couple of times I didn't take enough and didn't have anything. But then like the third time I did it, I was like, all right, I just need to see what's this, like, I don't know what to expect. It was the most incredible. I was laughing my ass off. I felt like I was at Disney World, like neon Disney World. Everything was amazing.
Where
I
did
was
you
like
do it? Like,
at
what
a
was
friend's house, like a
yeah,
party.
okay.
So there were people to take care of me, which was very good because I couldn't even stand up. Really, it was ridiculous. I was outside at 10 o'clock at night in the pool, laughing so loud. I had my hand over my mouth, trying to not laugh so much because I was afraid the neighbors were
Now,
going to
were
call the
you?
cops.
Or was it just your brain that made you think you were?
Oh no, I was laughing so.
But
hard.
did other sober people confirm this to you
Oh,
after
yes.
you came down?
Oh yes,
Okay.
yes. Oh yes. No, I was.
Because
present there.
I've been around plenty of people who have partaken in drugs, and they'll say something and be like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm talking something loud." I'm like, "You're gonna have to speak up, dude." I
Actually,
cannot
one
fucking
drug
hear
we
you.
didn't
No,
talk about, which is
laughed.
still huge, is Coke. We forgot to talk about that one.
Oh,
And Coke and sex are like notoriously go together, especially in our
Yeah.
society. But
and that's so addictive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate cocaine actually because it's so addictive.
it is
And
incredibly
it's-
addictive. And it's also just like a horrible drug. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I hate cocaine too. Like,
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah.
But anyways,
So,
there's
okay.
still, there's still a lot to talk about. And like,
Yeah. Well, just tell people. So on coke, what happens with when people are
with
under
sex drive,
Yeah.
I would say it's something that's just like you are so hype. Coke is like just doing like a mega amount of like stimulants. Like it would be like it's like your brain is it's like so on such overdrive that you can't like having sex again. It's like also an adage. Like people get like Coke dick and like
Yeah.
you just can't finish and like your heart is racing so it doesn't even feel good because like. It's like
right.
being
You're
nervous.
afraid you'll have a heart attack when you.
I would
if
never
you can get to an
recommend-
orgasm, and you're a terrible lover.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard ananybody say,
And, like-
"Oh, I want them to be on coke
Also,
when they
you don't
pleasure me."
shut the fuck up. And like, I get it, like talk during sex, but at the same time, like shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah,
really,
because-
at some
right.
point, like please shut
Talking
up.
dirty is not talking because you can't stop.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I think cocaine is actually one of the worst. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything good that comes from it with respect to sex. So yeah, no
I mean,
no upside.
It's just like,
I think.
yeah, it's bad. I would agree with you. It's something
Yeah.
that I wouldn't recommend doing at all.
Yeah, and
ever
it'll
in
trash your
general,
sex life pretty much. So yeah, there you go.
So, it
all
all-
right. Well,
but-
thank y'all. If you have stories, information, ideas, I don't know, feedback, then let us know. And certainly if you have other information that you think we should share with everybody about different substances and stuff, please let us know. Because again, we're 3 people. We have 3 different perspectives. We share each our own, but y'all are, have other perspectives that we're always thrilled to hear. So, and all right, I'm Beth Darling, your sexy genius from sexyedschool.com. And I will just throw out there for women out there, my Learn to Love, Oral and All, an online class is going to start in about a week on January 11th, the next round. So if you want to learn how to get comfortable without the effect of drugs and everything, and you want to learn how to love not only yourself, but your partner, to love oral, to love every part of loving and to do it well, and how to grow a happy, healthy, long-lasting relationship, I hope you'll join me. Go to sexyedschool.com and look for Learn to Love, Oral and All. So have that. And Aaron, all right, you want to tell them where they can find us, please?
Yeah, social media, Facebook and Instagram at Come With Us Podcast, Twitter at Come With Us Pod. You can email us. DMs are open on all three of those, but you can also email us if you want it to be a little bit longer or anything like that. Questions, comments, concerns, stories of you having sex under the influence, warning stories, or just fun stories. But don't go and take drugs. Again, we're not endorsing taking drugs. It doesn't mean go take them and then send us an email. But if you have in the past and you want to share that story, feel free. It's comewithusconfessions@gmail.com. That's comewithusconfessions@gmail.com.
Perfect. All right. Please give us a review. Tell your friends about us. And welcome to the new year, 2022. It's going to be a sexy, fun, hot year. We're so glad to share it with you. So thanks. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Aaron. Big hugs and love to you out there, and we'll see you next week, right?
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Come With Us podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Come With Us Podcast and send in your questions, comments, and confessions to comewithusconfessions@gmail.com. Until next time, keep it fun, flirty, and naughty.